So you finished a site that you're working on, everything's working, your links are all set up, everything is good. And then you have to add a new page to it. And then, okay, so you come to your index.html here and you go, let's say the client needs to add, or you need to add a pricing page. So you make the new link in there, we throw a pricing on there, you got to spell things. You make your pricing link here, pricing, you make the actual pricing page. And then on my home page, I have pricing right there. But then of course, if I go to any of my other pages, they're not there. That means I actually have to come and I have to copy this from here, and then I go over to my contact and then I paste it. And now, okay, so it's on my contact page too. And then I have to go to my next page and add it there because it's not on the blog. And maybe you're a bit more efficient. You have a find and replace that you use or something like that. But wouldn't it be nice if we could have templates instead of having to update it everywhere? So you could have a template for your navigation. You could have a template for your footer. You could even have template elements within where you could just change the content that would be inside of them. That would be pretty wonderful. And there's lots of solutions to being able to do something like that, but some of them can seem very complex and hard to get started with. And in this video, what I want to do is look at what I think is the absolute simplest way to get that done. Hello, my front-end friends, and welcome back to yet another video. I'm so glad that you've come to join me once again. And if you are new here, my name is Kevin, and here at my channel, I help you make the web and make it look good while you're at it with weekly tips, tricks, and tutorials. As I mentioned in today's video, we're going to be exploring how we can make template stuff. In this one, we'll focus on a navigation and a footer, but we can take this many steps further, and we're going to be using something called Astro to get this done. Astro is a static site generator, and a static site generator is something where you can provide it with some data, with a bunch of template files and other things that you normally wouldn't be able to do with static HTML and CSS. So what it means is you can use these templates and use things that aren't actually part of HTML, but it's going to take what you've created and turn it into static HTML files like we know and love. It means a very fast experience for the user. And for a lot of solutions out there, static sites are probably the best solution that you could be using. And you might be wondering why I'm suggesting Astro. There's many static site generators out there. So one of the reasons I really like Astro is I think if you're just coming from HTML, CSS, and some JavaScript background, it's the easiest one to get started with. Or if you're somebody who already is using React, Vue, Svelte, or something else like that, it does actually support all of those as well. It's a little bit different from other static site generators that are built on top of those. But as I said, I think it's the simplest one to get started with because you don't even need those to get started and to get using it and to really take advantage of all the power that you can use it for. But this one's going to be about keeping it as simple as possible. So let's dive into the code and see how we can get this done. All right, so we could actually install Astro into this project that I have right now, but there's always this risk with when you're installing something like this, that if you have existing files in your folder structure, that it could cause some conflicts. And because I just have a simple HTML, CSS file here and nothing else going on, I just think the easiest thing is to sort of take what we already have and to convert it, since we have something that's already in place. So what I'm going to do is make a new folder. So let's go on my desktop and we can make a new folder. We haven't seen my desktop in a while, have we? But let's make a new folder, and that's off screen. So let me just bring it right here, and let's call this my Astro site. And you can call this folder whatever you want. It doesn't really matter. And let's open that up in VS Code. So you should be able to right click and open in VS Code, or you can just do a file and then an open folder and then open it that way. And so I have that folder open, and let's move this over. Let's close that. We don't need the open editors. And I'm going to push Control backtick, which is going to open up my terminal. And the other way you can do that is to go to View, and under View, go to Terminal right there. And actually, I'm going to move this over so it's going the full size like this. People always ask me how I do this. And so this is using Windows Power Toys. I'll put a link to them down below. It's one of the many features that it does come with. And so yeah, we're in the terminal. Now you might be going, oh my goodness, we're in the terminal. This is scary. I don't like touching this stuff. It's a bit beyond me. We're going to keep it super simple. There's really not much that we have to do here at all to get this working. So there's just a few little commands we're going to be putting in here. If you're not using VS Code and you're using a different editor, if it doesn't have a built-in terminal like VS Code does, you can just open up PowerShell on Windows, or you could open up your terminal if you're on Mac. And there is one other really important thing is for this, we will be using npm, which is the Node package manager. We will have to have Node installed on our computer to be able to use that. So if you don't already have it, or if you're not sure if you have it, you can just go over to nodejs.org. Once again, there will be a link down in the description so you can get that easily. And I would go with this one for now. Now, if you're watching this in the future, this might be 17, but I have heard there are some issues with the 17. Some things aren't compatible yet as we're trying to catch up. So the recommended for most users, probably the best bet to go with, especially, if you're not a Power user or anything like that, it's going to get the job done. Once you install that, it's a simpler installer. You click next a few times, it's going to install it on your system and you'll be ready to go. Now we can come back here into my terminal and we want to be able to use, as I said, Node Package Manager. So for that, it's an npm, and then we're going to put a space, and I'm going to write init, which is initialize. We're initializing a new project. So we're going to do init and then Astro. Just like that, nothing too fancy. And then I'm going to hit return on my keyboard and everything should work. If you see an npm as an unrecognized command, it means that you don't have Node installed. And now you see here, it's actually saying which app template would you like to use? And it comes with different templates, and you just use your keyboard keys to go to the one that you'd like to use. For now, I'm going to recommend going with the starter kit just because it provides us a few little things that are there. Once you're comfortable with it, there'd be no issue at all going with the minimal one. But we'll start with the starter kit for now for this demo. And then it's going to ask what frameworks you'd like to use. And you can just, if you do want to use one in your project, so let's say I wanted to use Felt, I could just come, push to the right, and it would select it, or push to the left, and it would deselect it. And, I could go kind of crazy and bring them all in. But of course, why would I want to do that? So I'm going to go with nothing. You don't have to have any selected. In this, we're keeping it simple. But if your project did use React, or if you'd like to build something with the powers of React or Svelte or Vue, then those options are there for you. So let's hit return, and then you'll see it gives me a few next steps. And what I'm going to do for now is I'm actually going to write clear and push return, just so I'm starting at the top here because I think it's easier for the demo. And I'll do that first step, which is an npm, once again, Node Package Manager, and install. If you don't know what this is doing, is when we did that init, you can see it actually added a whole bunch of files here, and we're going to be exploring what's in those files in a minute. But what the install does is it looks at this package.json file, and in here it goes and looks for the dev dependencies, and it goes, oh, we need to have Astro for this project to work. So if I do an npm install, it's going to make sure it's going to go find that and install everything it needs, and this will be the longest step as it does this installation. And there we go. You can see that actually took 28 seconds. That was a long install for me. And you can see here I have a node modules that got added. And this is all the different things that Astro is going to be using to be able to build our project, to run our project, and all of that. So it needs everything that is in there for it to function properly. You also see now it says Astro is not installed. But if I leave and come back, there we go. It's gone because we've done our npm install. So what do we need to do now? Let's just write clear again so we can push that to the top. And we want to be able to start working on our project. So one nice thing with many tools like this now is we have, we can run up our own development server. So I'm just going to put an npm run dev like that. And that's going to fire up a development server for me where I can then do my work and get we have hot module reloading and everything. So everything's refreshing. So let's go check it out. We'll run this. And we'll see what it does. It doesn't take long, and you can see it started my host, and we're at localhost 3000. So you can copy and paste that, or I can just control click on it, and it will open it up in the browser for me. And welcome to Astro. And it says a bit of the structure and a little bit of what we're working on. And you might be wondering where this file is coming from. So let me put this over here and just put that there. So we have both open at the same time. And for now, I'm going to close my terminal because we're not really going to need it very much for the time being. And we're going to go and look at the file structure. So I mentioned before, and let's make this a little bit bigger, I guess, so we can see them easier. The node modules is the area. It's all these extra dependencies that Astro needs to be able to run. We never need to go in there. We have a public folder here. Public is the area where you'll put all of your static assets. So if you have a lot of images in your project, we have an asset. So this is the logo that's right there, but you could remove that logo, bring in your own images that could all live inside of here. The favicon, we would want to replace it with your own, I'm assuming. There's the robots.txt. Anything that's a static file that's just there that your site relies on can go into that public folder. Then we have the source folder here, and this is where all of the things where you're doing your work will be happening. And for now, I'm going to go to pages, and you'll see an index.astro. It's a little different. It's not an HTML file, but if we go and look, it's going to look a lot like an HTML file. Where, here you go, we get our regular HTML stuff, but you'll notice a little bit of other things happening at the top. And I'm not going to stress too much about any of that right now. We'll look at more of that as we go through. But just as a very quick thing, if I come in here and we have my welcome to, let's put, instead of welcome to Astro, welcome to my new site, hit save, and as soon as I hit save, you can see it's already updated on the other side. Now, I'm not doing an in-depth Astro tutorial right now. I just want to look at how we can create some simple templates. So I think the very first thing we could actually do is to delete everything that we have here from my main all the way down to here. And so we have my regular body, and then I'm going to come up over to here and I'm going to delete this style that we have here. And there's one more thing that I am going to delete here, which is you'll see here that we have a global CSS file and a home CSS file, but I'm not going to link to two CSS files. I'm only have one, so I'm going to delete that one as well. And for now, I'll leave the favicon. You could replace that with your own. And we have this global, and I'm going to rename it to style.css because that's the name of my CSS file. So I'm going to hit save, and now you can see the website broke because we've removed everything and my style sheet is looking at something that doesn't exist yet. I'm also going to come up a bit further and you can see there's some information here. I'm going to delete these, but obviously if you want to leave this stuff in there, you can. And for now, I'm actually going to leave this import one here because we're going to be importing stuff later. We can just use that as a reference to make sure that we're typing things properly. But just to clean that up, I want to remove some of those comments that are there. You'll also notice the title here. You can probably guess what that's doing, but we're going to dive more into that in a little bit as well. What I want to do is start bringing in some of the existing pages that I already had, or if you don't have any existing pages, you could come in here and actually start adding different things to your body. So what I'm going to do is this is my project folder that I was looking at before. And so I'm just going to pop this off on the side right here, and we'll move this back over that way. And so these are the original files that I was looking at the very beginning when we were looking at that site. I can even just open up this index.html so we can see it in Chrome. And so here we can see it's working, but obviously my navigation works better on some pages than others, and that's what we want to fix. So what we're going to do is I'm going to take these files and I'm going to move them all into my Astro project now. So let's grab them all here and just drag them over into the pages. You'll notice it's not actually going to move the files. It says copy right now, and you can do this right into VS Code, which is handy. And it's put them all into my pages section. So that was nice and easy. And obviously I also need a CSS file. So here I had those two that I wasn't using. So let's go and delete those before we do anything else. And then I can grab this style.css and I can drop it in that styles that's right there. And I brought in the CSS file that I want to be using for this project. And I can close my get rid of that project file because we don't need it anymore. Let's get that back open and we can start working on here. And now what I could do is I could come into all of these and rename them .astro. But ideally, this is where you'd have to come and sort of reconfigure everything to get it to work each time. And that would kind of get a little bit annoying, I think, or I would find that because we're in that same problem we had before. We're copying and pasting over and over and over again. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in my source folder here, and I'm actually going to make a new folder. And that folder is going to be called layouts. And inside of layouts, I'm going to make a new file called, we'll call it main layout.astro. And you notice it's starting with a capital M. It's just the naming convention we have for when we're creating components. And with Astro, layouts are actually components. So we're sort of just separating them to make life a little bit easier. I'm not really going to talk about components in this one. We're going to focus on this video on just creating sort of a master layout that we could use. But I do have plans on exploring Astro in a lot more detail and diving into a lot more things we can do with it. And just because I love it, it's so easy to use. So if that sounds good to you and you haven't yet subscribed, consider hitting that subscribe button so you don't miss any of those videos. And so yeah, we have this main layout.astro. And what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to grab this index file that's here, and let's take all of this, and let's take all of this here, and I'm going to cut it out of here, and I'm actually going to bring that into my main layout.astro, and I'm going to paste it here. And you're going, wait, why would you be doing that, Kevin? But what this is going to be doing is this is going to be serving as our main template for our page now. And so then what I'm going to do here is I'm going to come over into my index, and I'm going to grab from the header to the end of my header, and I'm going to cut that out. And I'm just going to leave this main here that's in my index. We're going to hit save on that for now. We're going to make changes thereafter. And then I'm going to paste this into here. So again, this is my main layout, and we're going to paste that and hit save. Nothing's happening yet, but this is where the magic happens, where if I go onto my index.astro And remember when I said we're going to sort of make a change to this current import that's happening? I'm going to say we're going to import main layout from, you might guess, layouts, and then this would be my main layout. You don't need to name this and this the same way, but having them have the same name usually makes life a lot easier. And what this means is anywhere I want to use my main layout, I'm using this here. You go, well, how do I do that? You just do an open main layout, close it, hit save, and oh no, I got an error. This is the title's not there, so let's just come back here. For now, I'm going to remove the title, and we'll fix that shortly. But there we go. We have a navigation on that page. So we have on my index.astro, all we're saying is use main layout, and then if we go and look at what main layout is, it's bringing all of this in there on its own. Pretty cool, right? And that's including like my head, it's including everything and my navigation there. And why don't we just come in and to add to this a little bit, let's come in and add a footer and say, I don't know, we'll do a container in here, I guess, too. So we have my footer, then we can come and say dot container. And in there, we want to have a paragraph that just says copyright 2020. We're almost 2022, so we'll throw that in there. And we have a copyright that's coming in now. And you can even use JavaScript on that to put in like the current year or whatever you want to do for that, so it's not hard-coded in there. So that's great. But now let's go back to my index.astro file. And I want to put in my own content now. We want to come in and let's just say I want to put in an H1. So let's come here and say H1, my homepage. We'll bring in the actual content in a second. But I go, oh no, that's down there. Okay, I don't want that there. What if I bring this up here and hit save? Oh, that's not where I wanted that to be. How can I get it in the middle? Oh, I know, I could actually put it in here. Except no, that doesn't work either. So and I guess that's like the most logical one, but we can't do that. So what can we do? Well, let's come back to my main layout.astro, the template that we've created. And in between my header and my footer, I'm going to come here and I'm going to put in something called a slot. And what this just means is we're going to slot our content that we're adding to our pages right here. So let's hit save on that. And let's come back to my index.astro. Now is when you can actually come inside your main layout here. So if I do my H1 here and then I say my homepage and hit save, now it's actually putting that in there because it knows that I'm using my layout template. And then any content that is in between the opening and closing tags of main layout, it's going to get inserted into where we have this slot right there. So that's pretty cool. So let's go to my index page right here and we can grab from my main all the way down, take that out and go over to my index.astro and replace it with that one and hit save. And now all of that content is right there. And then we could just repeat that for my next one. So let's go and let's go to my about file here and we're going to rename it. We'll rename this about.astro. And we know we can actually delete now everything from, we just want that main, right? So we keep only the main, delete all of this here, keep only the main. And then over here, we want to come in and change this a little bit. Now for that area at the top, actually, here, you'll notice where we have this little bit of JavaScript-y stuff going on. It's inside of triple backticks. And this is usually called front matter. It's very common across static site generators. And so I'm going to go to my about. I'm going to put in 3 backticks. And actually, you only notice how that, if I do backtick, it automatically assumes that we want more stuff. So there we go. We have my 3 backticks. And we're going to do the same thing. We have my import main layout from. And then inside my quotations, we want to go back a step, go to my layouts, and then from there, grab my main layout.astro. And then we can come right here and just put in that main layout, cut that out, paste that down here, hit save, and that's working. And let's go check it out and see what happens if I click and, oh my goodness, my links aren't working. Why are they not working now? That's a problem. And the reason none of them are going to work is because my original links actually went to an index.html or my about.html. And this is creating pretty links, so we don't need the .html at the end. So let's go over back to my main Astro file, and we're going to come all the way up. And here, I'm just going to do / for the index. And then this would be / about. And then you can guess for the others. So let's do that really fast. And let's hit save on that one. And I'm just going to hit refresh here. So we get a hard refresh. Let's try my home. That seems to be working. Go to about. And both of these are working. And it's working both ways because by updating it here, it's updated it on both of those sites. So right now we don't have a pricing page. I can delete that pricing page, hit save, and you can see it's already updated. And if I go to my about page, it's also updated here. And I only have to update my navigation once now for it to update across all my pages. Or if we did come into my footer, here, copyright 2021 to 2022, just so we change the content, it's changed there. We go to my home page, it's also changed over here. So that's pretty magical and pretty awesome, but there are a few things that we still need to do. You'll notice, we still have Node.js, but here my localhost is 3000 for the title of the page, which we don't want. And if we go back to my index, we had this let title equals my Astro site, and that's obviously not working. And we ran into that problem here with my title. And so what we're actually going to do here is we're going to keep this like we had before, where it's going to say title, but we just have to tell it what this title actually is before we can use it. So all the way at the top of the page, in my main layout, we're still in the template folder. We're going to do our backticks. And what we're going to do up here is we're going to write let, and then we want to do it exactly like we have down there. So I'm going to do let title, and we're going to have it equal to, and then capital Astro dot props. And what this means is I can assign my main layout different properties. In this case, it's going to be the title one that we're going to be setting. And then it can take those properties and inject them where we need it to be. And it's super easy to do. I just have to come back to my index.astro, and we can actually delete this from being up here in this front mattery area. And what we're going to do is come to here and say title is equal to, and we'll split my Astro site and hit save. And we should be able to see once that's done, there we go, my Astro site right there. So that means we can go to my about page, we can come and give this a title of equal my about page and hit save. And now we have home is my Astro site, go to about, and it's my about page, and the title has been updated that easily. Now the next stages here would then be to come in and do the same thing on these other pages, which I'm not going to do right now because I think you get the idea of how easy it is to make this templates work and everything work on that. So I'll leave those there. We could take a step further with the navigation and actually make that a component that then is brought into our layout and other things. But right now, we covered the simplicity part of it, but we need to get this on the internet. We need this to be actual pages instead of being .astro files, because the browser has no idea what a .astro file is. So what we want to do is to take what we have now and turn it into an actual working site. So let's do control backtick and to open up our terminal again. And I'm going to push Control C to terminate the job and push Y to say yes. And if let's do a clear on there. If you're on a Mac, that might be Command C. I'm not sure. So if Control C doesn't work, try Command C. And now instead of doing, before we did an npm run dev, if you remember, that fires up the development server so we can do our work. But once your work is done and you're ready to put things on the internet, you want to come in with an npm run build. And what that's going to do is build it for production. So let's hit that, run build, and you can see it says that it's doing it. It shouldn't take too long. Haha, it's all done. So let's go and take a look at what that's done. And it's created this dist folder for distribution. And we can come take a look in there. And you notice I have an index.html. And if I go to my about page, I have an index.html in the about folder. So that just means it's creating our pretty URLs like I mentioned. And of course, if I had done those other files in my pages and converted those over to Astro files, it would have compiled those into regular HTML as well. So this dist folder is the one that is now like the one that goes online. So if you're using something like an FTP, you can upload it that way. You can also preview it locally just by doing an npm run preview. And that's going to open up the files that are in your dist rather than the ones that it's generating there. So let's go take a look. And it should look exactly the same because we haven't done anything too fancy, but this is a preview based on the actual HTML files in the dist folder there. And because we have a static site, we could host this very easily on Netlify or Vercel or other options, GitHub Pages, for example. And if you'd like to know how to do that, I have talked about that in the past. So that video is right here for your viewing pleasure. And with that, a really big thank you to my supporters of Awesome over on Patreon, Adam, Johnny, Stuart, Randy, and Tim, as well as all of my other patrons for their monthly support. And of course, until next time, don't forget to make your corner on the internet just a little bit more awesome.